Hey comic fans, Dave here at Ground Zero. It's Wednesday morning. That means it is time for your weekly look at what's new on the shelves at your favorite local comic book store. But now, before we dive in, I want you to go back with me about a month, because it was just about a month ago that there was a whole plethora of brand new titles starting. A whole heaping helping of #1 issues, many of which caught your attention. Well, what does that mean for us today? That's right, it's time for the inevitable reign of #2s, or storm if you prefer. Either way, just think of the comics industry as a giant gorilla flinging #2 issues at passersby as they walk past its cage. It'll make your trip to the comic shop just that much more interesting, so you're welcome. Either way, how many #2s were there this week? I didn't actually count, but perhaps you can count along with me as we go through the highlights. First off, a genuine highlight for me, because one of the books that I really loved last month was Not All Robots #1, and the #2 issue hits the stands this week. Now, it's got great art by Mike Deodato Jr., but the real star here is writer Mark Russell. Lot of really great, keen observations in this book. It gave me everything I wanted in a comic these days, and other people seem to agree. I recommended it to everybody. They bought it and loved it, and so they'll be just as excited about the #2 issue as I am. So from AWA, it's Not All Robots, brand new this week. But as they say, just wait, there's more, because the same week that one came out, we got the first issue of The Me You Love in the Dark. Now, this is from Image Comics and Scotty Young. Scotty Young is great. He does really good work. This one was a really fast read, both the first issue last month and I read this one last night. It advances the story, at least 3 or 4 inches along the football field of plot. So yeah, fast read, but entertaining. So for those of you who really enjoyed the first one, and that was apparently a lot of you, second one is in this week. I also have second printings of the first issue for those of you that missed it. From Vault Comics. Now, Vault Comics has been a really hot publisher of late. A lot of their books have just taken off really well, including this one, The Last Book You'll Ever Read. I didn't actually like this one all that much. I thought it was awfully predictable. Either way, it's by Cullen Bunn. Cullen Bunn does good work, and for the most part, people seem to really like it. It became a quickly hot book. Well, I've got second printings in the first issue in this week, as well as the brand new first printing of the second issue. So there you go, #2 from Cullen Bunn, Last Book You'll Ever Read. But again, just wait, there's more, because DC is jumping into their own #2 game with Joker Puzzle Box. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Joker these days, but I like this. This actually is very tasty. It's from Matthew Rosenberg. Really, if they did more Joker stories like this, I would become a Joker fan again. Either way, really cool, really neat concept. So if you like Joker and want to read a tasty story, this is the one you want to check out. Second issue on the stands this week. One more from DC that is #2, and that is Blue and the Gold. For those of you like me who really loved the Giffen and DeMatteis Justice League from the 80s and early 90s, this gives you the Warm and Fuzzies #2 style. It's from Dan Jurgens. You kind of know what you're getting with the Blue and the Gold, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle. There you are, #2. Moving over to Marvel, because Marvel will not be undone on the #2 front, so they've got several #2s of their own, including Avengers Tech on Avengers. You all know how I feel about this one. I did not think it was a particularly good idea, turning the Avengers into the Beetleborgs. Apparently I was wrong, because a lot of you actually really liked this book. Both the first run of it sold out, this is selling out, it's done really well, so either way, come and grab up your Beetleborg Avengers, a #2 issue on stands this week. Deadpool does his own #2, and in this particular case, it is Black, White, and Blood. So, see a Dr. Deadpool. Either way, if you like your #2s with Black, White, and Blood in them, I don't know what to say. Either way, it's on the stands this week, and I'm sure it will do very well because it's Deadpool. One more #2 from Marvel, and that is Defenders. Now, I did actually like this book. My biggest complaint with it is that it is not a solo Silver Surfer title. But what can I say? Religious books don't sell anymore these days, so either way, we'll have to settle for a Defenders book that has Silver Surfer and a bunch of other guys that I don't really care about. Either way, it's on the stands this week, and it's a #2. That's all the #2s, at least, that I decided to highlight for this week, so hopefully you've been counting along. But we move along to some #1s, because, you can't have a comic book shop without #1s every week. Going back to Vault Comics, we get Deadbox. Story, it's obviously a play on red boxes. This one's a very high concept with a small town with no Wi-Fi access, no video store, no cable TV. All they've got is a red box, and it has movies in it nobody has ever heard of it that have strange effects on the people who watch them. I was all prepared to hate this. or at least not like it. It's way too high concept for my taste, but it actually had some really tasty, crisp writing. I liked it very much, and it was only after I read it and liked it that I realized it's by Mark Russell, the same guy that writes Not All Robots. So go Mark Russell, I am becoming a fan. So if you like Not All Robots, you might actually want to check this one out too. Good observations on life today, actually. And I think that's part of what I liked about it so much. Either way, it's in, and it's not number 2, although presumably the number 2 will follow. Another number 1 from Jeff Lemire and Dark Horse Comics is Maze Book. I didn't get a chance to read this one because I opened it up and it looks like it's a really nice book with a lot of words. I didn't have time, but honestly, Jeff Lemire just almost always hits it out of the park. Can't imagine this is anything less than stellar. It's from Dark Horse. Dark Horse needs your love. Jeff Lemire, as always, deserves your love. So Maze Book, it's in. And actually, half the copies we got in were already taken by Savers that put it on Saver in advance of it coming out. So there's obviously anticipation about this book, and it's here this week. One more India that I'll mention that is not a number 1 or a number 2, and that is Ordinary Gods from Kyle Higgins, because Kyle Higgins has had the golden touch lately, and this book has done just as well as some of his others, Radiant Black and everything else he's done. Either way, it's in for those of you anxiously awaiting it, and it's in issue number 3. Moving back over to DC, well, we get to Infinite Frontier number 6. This is the final issue of this series, so it's done really well, mostly because of President Superman. Everybody seems to go gaga about him, and I really think that's the only reason people are buying it, but doesn't matter because they're still buying it, and the last and final issue is here this week. Of course, it wouldn't be a week at a comic shop without a new issue of Batman, so here we are, new issue of Batman, and it has, come on, speculators, get excited, because this has the very first cameo appearance of Peacekeeper X. Now, this is not the Peacekeeper from the Suicide Squad movie, everybody loved him, but he's already premiered in comic that came out and got cleared out in everybody's quarter bin years ago, so good luck finding those. We don't have them. But DC says, hey, we can give you another Peacekeeper, and we'll slap an X on his name because everybody loves the letter X. Let's face it, X is the comic industry's version of gravy. Everything's better with gravy. Peacekeeper X. And I guess that goes both ways, so if you can just swap out X and gravy, well, that's going to make Marvel Comics more interesting, because now we get to the newest trade paperback of Gravy Factor. What can I say? Gravy Factor has done pretty well. Everybody loves X and gravy. But the one you're really excited about from Marvel is, of course, Gravy Force. Gravy Force is in this week. Lap them up while you can. I just don't know what else to say about that. Come on, everybody buys these books anyway, so it doesn't matter whether I mention them or not, actually. Let's move over to trade, shall we? Maybe we'll get this thing in under 10 minutes. Got a new manga that a lot of people have been kind of excited about, for the sheer reason it's supposed to be disgustingly gory, and it largely is. It has really good art, actually. The art in it is really good for a manga title. It's called Crueler Than Dead. It's zombies and gore and splatter and all the kind of stuff people love in their books. And it's in new this week, so prepare to grab up a copy and have it fall apart in your hands, because zombie stuff. Or if your taste run a little bit more pleasant, there is the new Superhero Girls from DC. I don't really know what I need to say about that one. Every time we have Free Comic Day, that seems to be the most popular title with younger readers in particular, and especially girls. They need a book like this. I hope DC never, ever stops publishing these. We'll always carry them. So either way, new Superhero Girls in this week. Marvel, on the other hand, is continuing to live in the past, but that's okay because their past is glorious. We get another repackaging of the first 10 issues of Avengers, but this one's actually in a smaller format that's actually pretty inexpensive. So if you haven't bought, the high expensive Epic collections, which I do really like, or the Masterworks or the omnibuses, and you just want a cheap way to read the first 10 issues of Avengers, this is it. So actually, I applaud Marvel for doing this. Let's get those stories in the hands of people who want to read them. Moving right along here, remember Zeropoint? It just seems like yesterday that was the hottest book going, and then it's done and everybody kind of forgot about it. Well, now we get the trade paperback. This also has codes for a bunch of in-game stuff for those of you who want that. Either way, a nice, cool, nifty hardcover from DC off Batman Zeropoint. Now, speaking of Batman, you might remember a time, except there wasn't one, probably in your lifetime, when there wasn't like 9 Batman titles every single week. There was a time when there was only 3 Batman titles every single month. That's all we had. We call that time the 50s. Yeah, it was like 70 years ago. But either way, 70 years ago, there wasn't so much Batman, so I guess they focused on making the Batman titles that were out good. So if you want to go back and read some cool old nostalgic Batman goodness, Batman in the 50s is some of the best of his work in the 50s, put together in a nice convenient trade. So yeah, every Bat fan should check that out. Speaking of the 50s, some of the best comics done in the 50s is Shock Suspense Story, the various EC books that were done. Great, fantastic, Wildwood cover. There was some great work in here. Shock Suspense Stories is where they really kind of tried to get, I guess, politically aware. They were a little bit preachy in their stories, but they had some great points to make. This is seminal stuff. If you haven't read every one of the EC stories, you need to. You absolutely can't call yourself a comic fan if you haven't read this stuff. Everybody wants to read, Tales from the Crypt, because that's kind of the big brand name. Weird Science, maybe somewhat of a brand name, but honestly, read them all because they're all great, and we're going to keep them as long as we can. One last book that I will mention, and that is Joker Harley, Criminal Insanity. No, actually, Criminal Sanity, not Insanity. I'm thinking Jamiroquai. Either way, Criminal Sanity is in a big hardcover. This is a black label title from DC, and it's out now in a cool, nifty hardcover for those of you who like to wait on the hardcovers. And okay, so speaking of Jamiroquai, and I guess Virtual Insanity was the name of that one. Yeah, 90s. The 90s are back. So I got to ask you, leave it in the comments, one way or the other. What just sends you into a fit of 90s nostalgia or revulsion more? Jamiroquai's Virtual Insanity or Hathaway, What is Love? I'm actually curious to know because both those songs are going through my brain right now, obviously. Either way, folks, that's it. I didn't make it. We're over 10 minutes yet again. A lot to cover. We'll get them down next time somehow, I promise. Either way, as always, it's not about having what you want. It's about wanting what you have. Folks, thank you so much. Be safe, everybody. Go visit your local comic shop.